Hey folks, welcome back to the Workplace Innovator podcast. It's me, Mike P., and I am so happy that you have decided to join me once again for a conversation about facility management, corporate real estate, and the workplace, and the innovation that goes into making our places and spaces great places for employee experiences. And I'm going to have a new guest on today joining us from across the pond over in Europe. But before I introduce him, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been listening to the show, watching these videos. Are you aware that we're on YouTube? I know that many of our podcast listeners are that. They're audio only listeners, but we are available now, full video versions of these episodes on YouTube. So please head over to the Aptura YouTube channel and subscribe, smash that like button, I think is what the kids say. And I really appreciate your support along the way. So with that said, I want to introduce a new friend to the show, someone I met just recently who has a very interesting take on the world of innovation and technology and the workplace. His name is Alexander Wennerberg, and he is the CEO and founder at Hives.co, and he joins us today from Stockholm, Sweden. Alexander, welcome to the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. You know, I'm excited whenever I meet somebody new and someone from Europe. We already joked a little bit in the pre-show that I'm going to mention Swedish music. But before I do that, before we go there, I wanted to hear a little bit more about you. You and I have chatted about the work you do at Hives.co. But for my audience who may not be familiar, what are you trying to work on? As your LinkedIn profile says, you capture, track, and prioritize ideas in innovation and improvement. I love it. Tell me about it.
That's very, very correct. And as you mentioned, I'm Swedish. I'm based in Stockholm. I run the company Hives.co, which is a software company that mostly work with large industrial organizations or manufacturing organizations, a lot of facility management and real estate organizations as well. And it's usually across like employee ideas and employee feedback, as you mentioned. But before I went into this field, I spent a lot of years helping mainly large organizations to succeed in big like digital transformation projects and product development. So plenty of time in the room with senior leaders and the people who usually run these kind of things. And that's pretty much what led me up to this.
Yeah, well, Hives.co is an interesting approach to this problem. I guess we have maybe an opportunity for my audience, and they have a chance to want to understand better what's going on in their organization and then get that information and use it in a productive way. So tell me how that all works.
Yeah. So what I kept noticing across all of these kind of let's say projects that we were involved in before starting Hives was pretty much the same pattern, and it was that the people closest to the problem were almost always the people furthest away from the decision to fix it, right? And the thing is that the information that would have made the project work in many of those cases was usually already in the building. It just had no way of reaching the people who needed it to make the accurate decisions around it. Right. So that's basically why we built Hives to shorten that distance. So and I think that these are the things that a lot of the people listening here deals with every day, to be able to capture those kind of like insights and getting the data right in order to make the right decisions about change and transformation all the time and improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about it here all the time, Alexander, that my audience of FM leaders knows what's going on in the built environment. They understand better than most how the people are using space, what the areas of trouble may be, the boots on the ground, or the finger on the pulse of the organization, I always say. And I can't wait to hear more of your ideas of how they can gather that information and the data needed to communicate the value of whatever change or transformation they are interested in pursuing. But before we go there, I always like to learn more about the personality of my guests, and I promised I'd ask you about music, but I'm not going to just make sure we talk about Swedish music. although there are many bands that come to mind when I think of Sweden. But what's on your playlist? What gets you inspired, Alexander?
So my favorite artist by, and maybe this is a disappointment. Maybe you want a Swedish music now, but I'm gonna go with an American one. My favorite artist by a long way is Bruce Springsteen. That's the one I've been growing up with as a musical inspiration. Definitely, and I just love his the boss. It is, and I've seen him multiple times when he's been touring Europe, and I just love that kind of music, that kind of like 70s, 80s rock and roll, and the combination of the organs, piano, guitars, and everything, and the way he tells stories with his songs. I just it's amazing.
I love it.
My kind of.
I grew up in New Jersey, Alexander. I am a proud New Jersey native. Yes, moved to Washington, D.C. during my teen years. But no, I would consider New Jersey my home state. Bruce Springsteen, so many others. Bon Jovi came from New Jersey. I guess Billy Joel, he's more of a New York local. But there's so many great artists from the 70s, 80s. And into today, Bruce is still out there doing it, putting on amazing shows. So that's fantastic. I was disappointed you didn't say ABBA or who else? Oh no, my era from the 80s, Swedish music was like Roxette. And the 90s, the Cardigans were huge. Yeah. Love me, say that you love me, fool me. That was a huge hit here in the States.
A lot of those people are still around and playing. Not as complete with all the former band members, but still going strong.
Right. What about the Swedish? Let's bring it to the 2000s. The Swedish house mafia. Remember that song?
Oh yeah.
Don't you worry, child.
Definitely, that's some really huge hits around the world, but
global hit.
Definitely, all the way. Yeah. But I think that
I had to bring it up.
Given that I'm very much into the more of the 70s, 80s rock and roll. Maybe that's before my time as well. I'm born in the late 80s, so it's.
That was probably too new for you then, because
traveling back to
role reversal. Yeah, this is the role reversal, Alexander. Anybody who listens to this show knows that I'm the one talking about 70s and 80s rock, and I live in the 80s, and then I'm trying to bring it forward with the Swedish music connection, and I've destroyed my reputation as DJ Mike P. So forgive me, everybody. I'll do better next time. Thank you for bringing up Bruce, though, as I was born in the USA.
Yeah.
Listen, next question before we get too far. I always like to ask for some inspiration. Do you have a favorite motivational quote you could share with my audience?
I do have one thing. I'm not sure if it's a quote or more as a way of seeing things, but there's one thing I keep coming back to all the time, and that's something actually from a Swedish speaker and like management trainer and coach named Christer Olsson. He's got this thing where he says there's no such thing as musts, but everything has consequences. And right. I think that it can sound simple and a bit strange, but I also think that that changes like almost how you think about pretty much everything, because we tell ourselves that we have to do things right, and we don't. And you might say like but we have to eat. Well, you don't, but then you'll not survive, and that's a consequence. And I think that we do things because we prefer the consequences of things, and once you see that, you start asking, I think, very different questions about why people in your organizations do or don't do things as well, and why they're choosing some paths and not. So I think that being able to think about that all the time, that there are no musts, but everything you do and don't do has consequences, and that's the thing that you have to make decisions based on.
Inaction is just as consequential as taking action, and I love this idea, Alexander. It's something we talk about a lot here, getting out of that comfort zone where we prefer not to make the change or the transformation or the introduction of a new strategy, technology, something that's going to disrupt our current understanding of how we do things and how we get things done. Yeah. And what we're good at, what we feel good about, it's always a discomfort, an uncomfortable transformation to get from this place we know so well to that new place. But that's what we talk about here. It's about being a workplace innovator. So I wonder, when you decided to come on this podcast, what you thought of when I always encourage my audience to be a workplace innovator. What does it take to be innovative in the workplace today?
Yeah, so I think that, honestly, I think that the word innovation has become pretty beaten. It's like, if to be fair, most of what gets called innovation in big organizations, it could often be classified as theater, to be harsh. It's the hackathons, sure. Innovation labs, posters in the cafeteria, etc. But right. I would say that, from what I'm seeing, that the stuff that actually moves the needle is pretty unglamorous. It's the structural change that lets the person who noticed something broken actually do something about it in the end. And I've got a story that I really like that was told to me, and that was years before Hypes even existed. I was talking with the operations director of Sodexo, which is a company that people usually know within facility management.
Absolutely, very familiar.
And he told me a pretty interesting thing that they've been hunting for years across many of their properties for the right product to remove the the black scuff marks from shoe heels that gets left on the floor. And they've spent years of testing different, like, cleaning stuff and different tools around that, and they spent real money on trying to find the solutions there. And then one day they found that out that one of our facility caretakers, being around, had figured it out a long time ago. He took a tennis ball, rubbed it against the mark, and usually that always comes off when you do that.
Huh, okay.
And that was pretty much it, because a caretaker had solved a problem that procurement team had been chasing for years. If they've only asked him, the people doing the work, and these kind of stories aren't really about, like, finding the specific solutions, but more about having a frontline person solving a problem that a company spent years and real money chasing out there. Wow. He probably didn't even think it was worth mentioning. So when I think in an innovative workplace, I don't really think these not all of these, like, AI things or ping pong tables and stuff like that. I more think that like how fast can a frontline observation become an action, and in most cases that the answer to that is unfortunately never. But if you can move that never to let's say next week, in my opinion, and that can sound harsh, but in that case, you've probably done more than 90% of the innovation programs out there.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with you, Alexander. It's a great point. It's a great example of what I refer to when we talk about being a workplace innovator. It is being empowered to make those small incremental changes or communicate something to your leadership team, to your direct reports, to your colleagues across the aisle, different departments, and saying, hey, we know this about our facility situation or our office or our campus or whatever environment we're speaking about. And we have this idea, let's voice it. And that's where that question of culture and leadership comes into play. And it's also essential to what we're trying to encourage and inspire our listeners to be when they want to be those innovative leaders and share their ideas. It's not about coming up with the next AI innovation, or I always joke about it's not about inventing the next iPhone. You don't have to make some breakthrough that's going to change the world tomorrow, but it could change the world in which we operate, right? Your office,
definitely. In the end, it's about solving challenges or problems or taking on opportunities, and it doesn't have to matter if it's a small thing moving us forward at like small steps at a time, or sometimes there comes up like big innovations and big transformational solutions as well to challenges. But if you start from the challenges and observations and problems and opportunities, that's where you usually find the progress in moving forward.
Yeah,
in most organizations.
We look back after a period of time of that type of mindset and that culture, and then we look back and go, wow, we really moved the needle over these last several years or the past decade. I talk about it a lot here. Well, with that in mind, Alexander, I wonder what you are most excited about here in the middle of 2026. We do have opportunities to make those transformative changes and be a part of the bigger mission of the organization and really help business outcomes. That's what it's all about. We're not just doing this for, performative purposes or to be the, poster child you mentioned earlier. It's about doing things that really help people. And that's what we're most focused on here, is that human experience of the workplace. So what are you optimistic about? What are you excited about? How do we do what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think that the question I keep coming back to is that how pretty much like how do you build a workplace where speaking up actually pays off? Because in a company too big for everyone to know each other, that can be a pretty hard thing to solve, because small organizations do this in a more natural way. The barista or the receptionist can just tell that the coffee machine is broken, and usually it gets fixed tomorrow or by Wednesday or whatever. Sure. But in a 50,000 person organization, or even a 500 person organization, the same observation goes through 6 layers or even 15 or 20 layers of decision makers sometimes, and it gets summarized into a slide, and it usually dies in the quarterly review or meeting, to be honest. And I think that a lot of the time right now goes into the AI side of this question, of course, but I also think that AI needs to be on the right side of this work, because I don't think that AI should be the one generating the ideas. I don't think that we really have an idea shortage in most organizations, but rather using AI to help the team responsible for a problem actually understand the pattern across the thousands of pieces of input or information or data they already have, but never have had the time to read. So the trap I'm trying to avoid and recommend a lot of organizations out there to think about is not using AI to put more distance between the people with the observations and the people who can act on the observations, which you usually do if you start using AI to try to come up with ideas or insights instead of asking real people for observations, which is the easy thing to do, but also the wrong thing to do, to be honest. So
interesting. Yeah, very interesting and well said. I think, Alexander, this idea that yes, we want to gather the information and have a tool like AI or some system organize it for us and kind of elevate the things that maybe we can't see as quickly as human beings, but that human part of it, that human intelligence, the emotional intelligence, the ability to say, okay, what does this really mean based on what I know as a person who lives and breathes in this built environment? And how can I communicate that more effectively, both up the chain and down to the team that are on the floor? So the question of human behavior, human understanding, communication, leadership, I mentioned it earlier. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, change management is all about that journey of communication and preparing your team to move to this new place, right? What would you say
exactly.
about that?
No, I think that, the most consistent mistake I see across organizations is treating change as something you do, how should I say that? As something you do to people and not with them.
Right.
Treating change in that way, meaning that you do communication plans, town halls, the whole, choreography around it to do all of it. But none of that works very long in my organizations, but the organizations that really like pull off real change, they rather treat employees as participants in change and transformation, and not as the audience only. And it sounds obvious, but to be fair, almost nobody does it. And the behavioral piece is pretty simple. When people see their input go somewhere visible, they engage with the next thing, and when they don't, you've just trained them to stay quiet the next time.
Right, and withdraw and not be part of the decision tree and the organizational movement. And that's why we have such a huge problem with disengagement. All the Gallup surveys show it. 30% engaged, 70% disengaged in broad terms. Well, what is the role of my audience, Alexander, in all of this? We've got facility management professionals. We've got real estate leaders. We've got some HR, some IT organizers, professionals listening and saying, I agree with this philosophy. Where do I fit into this picture?
Yes, I think that some of the things I'm thinking about is that the thing is that even though I'm not like purely in facility management or real estate myself, we have a lot of customers in FM and real estate who uses the platform. So we see this world pretty much up close, just from our particular angle, from where I sit. And I think that the thinking about these kind of things, facility management and real estate, etc. I think that that's a part of like moving from let's say a cost center to a value driver. And I think that the people who succeed are the ones who can prove that value usually. So a few things that I usually bring up is that, treat if we're looking specifically to workplaces, treat your workplace as more of a continuous experiment rather than like a finished product, because there's a pretty strong instinct to design once and then just defend that forever, and that can be pretty expensive to do. And then of course build feedback loops with the people who uses the space, not just the executives who pays for it. Even though they've got a lot of opinions, the people out there, the receptionist, all the people using the space usually have a lot of observations and information about what's working and what's not.
Absolutely.
So I think that a lot of the things is that making let's say making the invisible work visible, because FM does, among many other the departments and roles, of course, does an enormous amount of work that nobody sees until it breaks, pretty much. And I think that that's more of a strategic problem, not just an operational one, because what that means usually is that the functions that get the budget are the ones who have a value that is visible. And if the invisible work not becomes visible, that will usually lower the budgets for the next year.
So well said. Nicely done, Alexander. As we're running out of time, I looked at the clock. I'm like, wow, this is going by so fast. Any final thoughts for my audience? You've already given some great insight and some advice here, but any practical takeaway, something my listeners can do as a next step after listening to us as we head into the future of the workplace together?
Yeah, so I think that the organizations that really are the one who's going to be doing the best in the future are the ones who stops trying to let's say predict the future, and instead are the ones that with let's say the shortest distance between something changing and something actually happening. So it's about building that muscle and building that habit, because the forecast doesn't really always matter, to be fair, if we don't do anything. But to be super practical, two things that I usually tell organizations to start with, and that's two very practical and pretty small things to do that everyone can do this month. And that's one, it's about picking one employee idea or a complaint that came in this week from your organization, you trace the actual path through the organization for that idea or complaint, and you see how long until someone with authority sees it, and how long until something happens with that one. And most leaders, I think, are shocked by the number, and that time, I think, is your real innovation metric, going from that idea and complaint until something happens. So that's one thing. The other thing is to pick one workplace problem your team has been, let's say, kicking around for a year or so, and don't try to solve it in the small team, but throw it out in the full employee base if you can, with a real question and a real deadline, and see what comes back, what kind of solutions and suggestions comes back. So you'll either get the answer very cheaply to that challenge that you've been trying to solve for a year, or you'll learn something about how people think in your organization. Always something.
Yeah. Wow. Great stuff. I really enjoyed hearing your ideas and learning from you. Alexander Wennerberg, founder and CEO of Hives.co from Sweden. And I didn't even mention the band from Sweden, The Hives. Do you remember them from about 20 years ago?
Yeah, sure. Definitely. They're still
garage,
around.
kind of crunchy guitars.
Exactly. Yeah.
Love The Hives.
We stole the name.
Good. You stole the name. All right. Well, after this podcast, there'll be a copyright infringement lawsuit. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
Let's hope not. Listen, I really do appreciate you joining me here, and thank you for sharing your ideas with us. And I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for being on the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Mike.
And thank you all for listening and for watching. And I hope you are enjoying these discussions. If so, please share this podcast with a colleague or a friend, anyone who you think might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be a workplace innovator. Peace out, everybody.